Don talked about Lachey coming back. Boy, that does help you immensely because now you open up a whole different aspect of your playbook. Certainly need help on the offensive line with Ince coming back. And, Hankins came back in the game. If he was not, if there was any risk at further injury, to me, the coaches would not have put him back in the game, especially with the bye week. I would think he'd be fine.
Yeah, I do recall too that LaPorta was really dragging at the end of the game. He was a fatigued football player because he played more snaps against Purdue simply because Lachey wasn't involved at all. And this is something to think about. I do know when I first saw that, when I looked at the numbers for Purdue, I looked first for Bell's stats, and of course he had 33 yards receiving. His long reception was 10 yards, but I couldn't picture in my head who the leading receiver was, a guy over 100 yards. And then when I saw the replay today, now it hit me again. It was the tight end. That's the guy that had a lot of catches. A lot of that was cover two. They were getting the tight end in behind the linebackers with play action, and made some good plays with him. And the reason I think of that, of course, is that might suggest that this is a big game for LaPorta, and also for Lachey too, maybe a chance to utilize tight ends. And who knows how Wisconsin will play us? Maybe they'll play us maybe a lot differently than they played Purdue. I don't think they're afraid to line up with so many soft corners against us as they were Purdue. They played a lot of rolled corners against Purdue and played a lot of two high safeties, and the tight end did expose them a little bit there. I would imagine against us they'll play more quarters coverage, bring those safeties down, and get them involved in run defense, and dare you to throw a bunch of one-on-one routes outside, because that's not really our nature. That's what I would suspect is going to happen this weekend.
Question. Patrick O'Connell says, how do you know he cannot slide? He's talking about Spencer Petras. He's scrambled for positive yards about twice in his career. Well, I guess I don't know that, Don, but we have seen, and again, as I brought out earlier, Spencer's not the only guy. When they do scramble or run, they're taking hits. And C.J. Beathard got beat to heck when he was at Iowa because he couldn't slide. So, Don, I know maybe we can't be dogmatic about this, but the few times Spencer has ran, he has not utilized a slide.
Well, I'm trying to think back. I believe it was the Purdue game. Weren't there two cases in that game where he did cross the line of scrimmage, worked his way downfield, did not slide, and actually looked awkward in the way that the play finished up? There was, matter of fact, I know one time he got up and he was kind of limping around a little bit because he was in an awkward position when the play was blown dead. And until he proves he can slide, I'm going to continue to assume that he cannot, because I haven't seen it.
I like that, Don. Bob Burke says, I wonder if Iowa's analytics say sliding is overrated and to go head first and get down. And I think he's being serious here, Don. They are one of the few teams over the years who have not utilized it. I don't believe that's the case, Don. And if anybody's going to know what Iowa's analytics say about sliding, it's Don Patterson. So, Don, have you broken down the analytics about sliding? I doubt that it's better to go head first, ever.
Well, I always used to define it by down and distance. And our quarterback certainly understood if it's first or second down, protect yourself, get all the yardage you can, but ultimately, more than anything else, protect yourself. If you can get out of bounds without taking a hit, do that. And if you are on the field of play and you cannot get off the field, go ahead and slide before you get hit. And then the other qualifier is if it's third or fourth down, you just became a running back. So at that point, I don't want you to slide. I want you to know for sure where that first down marker is. If it's going to be close, then you have no choice but to get your pads down and lead with shoulder pads, and understand that every inch matters, because it is critical that you get that first down on a critical down. So that's the real difference there. Go ahead and take a chance, but you're still, again, the key point is to have your pads down, never, ever get stood up. That's how you see a lot of fumbles come out. A player gets stood up, and now the next man in strips the ball out. Incidentally, talk about a controversial play. Did you see the Oklahoma play over the weekend?
Oh, are you talking Oklahoma or Oklahoma State?
No, it was Oklahoma, I believe. I know it was Oklahoma.
The strip quarterback.
The back got stopped. You could certainly argue that his forward progress was stopped, and then the quarterback managed to take the ball from him and go for a first down.
What a play. What a play.
All I can say is, well, the quarterback hadn't heard a whistle, so he thought maybe the back needed a little relief. and it worked.
Bob Burke. Is an Iowa's offensive line play the key to competing in Madison on Saturday? If they have not improved over the bye week, that game Saturday will be hard to win. Again, there's a ceiling on this. I mean, Don is, let's just be honest. There is a ceiling on how much this offensive line can improve. Technique can improve, like Don's talked about, but there are some plays where these guys are just getting bullied, especially against Purdue. You watch that tape back. There were plays where each tackle and even Kyler Schott, I noticed a play or two where he's getting pushed back into the pocket. You know, again, technique can solve some of that, but some of that's strength, right, Don?
Yes, and you're right. I think back to the Penn State game. I remember being surprised, to be honest with you, without calling anybody out on any particular play. In general, everybody but our center, our guards, and our tackles at one time or another were what you might call manhandled almost in that game. Now, I realize Penn State's way above average at those positions, but we had difficulty at both guard positions and both tackle positions from time to time, being able to effectively pass block against Penn State. And I think Wisconsin's going to present some of those same kind of problems. But we'll have to see what happens Saturday. And the great insurance that we might be able to earn would be insurance related to turnover margin. Obviously, if you're +3 or +4 on turnovers, that solves a lot of your problems.
Nick's back to Iowa here. Nick says Spencer throws it away way before he ever has a chance to slide. Well, there's something to be said for that as well, Don. That's a valid point, but I think both are valid points. He doesn't appear to know how to slide, and he doesn't appear to know always when to extend the play with his legs.
Well, you know, if you bail out of the back of the pocket, which is something that happens with Spencer a fair amount, and again, it's not all his fault. Sometimes, of course, there's a real push on the pocket in terms of pass rushers. But when you bail out of the back of the pocket, if you're not very mobile anyway, then logically it's hard for you to ever get turned downhill, which makes it harder to throw the ball downfield. And your alternative, of course, is simply to loft the ball off the field because you're running toward the boundary more so than down the field anyway. So many good runners as quarterbacks, when they pull the ball down and run, they're often simply running the daylight up inside. They see a little bit of green up inside somewhere, they take it, and of course they're running north-south in terms of the field. And we say north-south, football fields traditionally are laid out exactly north-south. I don't know if the fans are aware of that, but Kinnick is very typical. That is a true north-south field, and the vast majority of the playing fields in the Big Ten are north-south. And so when we say north-south, we're talking about running directly down the field. And when you do that, of course, you've got a good chance to gain yardage quickly because you're not running laterally, you're running down the field.
Charles brings up an interesting comment. He says if Iowa can rush for 120 yards and 2 touchdowns this weekend, he likes Iowa to win. Remember, though, if I'm correct in saying this, Don, it's more about winning the rushing battle as opposed to a certain number you want to hit. So if Wisconsin runs for 200, it doesn't look good.
Absolutely true. That's why I like to couch it always in terms of team situations. In other words, can you outrush the opponent? You're exactly right, Corey. If we rush for 120 and they rush for 240, then we still have a huge problem, specifically in the rushing game.
Absolutely. Eric asks, how big of a role did the lack of QB pressures play in the Purdue loss? I heard there were almost no pressures as a result of upping the pass protection. No wonder the QB had plenty of time to find Bell. The blitzes were not effective in that game, Don. And
of course, you remember one particular pressure that really cost us dearly, and that was the 60 play to number 3.
Event Tide says, who do you think has the most of a downhill runner style as far as running backs go for Iowa? I would say Gavin Williams. They don't really have that as far as a top 2. Ivory Kelly-Martin's very similar to Tyler Goodson, at least it's how they run. They're both hard to take down. They both got speed. Gavin's more of that thunder to their lightning, I guess, Don. But are you surprised we haven't seen more? We've seen Iowa play 3 backs in past seasons. Are you surprised we haven't seen one of the Williams emerge?
Only mildly surprised. Honestly, I would suggest to you that Kelly Martin is more of a downhill runner.
Okay.
You know, he's actually probably the more what's the right word? The more deliberate runner, you could argue, would be Tyler. Tyler tries to pick his way and then accelerate through a hole when he sees a hole, and that's had good effect. But just as far as getting your pads down and not really being as deliberate a runner, you might argue that Kelly Martin actually has an edge on Tyler in that regard. He's got a pretty good average to show for it. I don't know how the averages compare, but there have been games, correct me if I'm wrong, Corey, where Kelly Martin had a better average than Tyler did.
That's true. And certainly the difference, at least from my perspective, is ball security. We saw, I believe Ivory Kelly Martin fumbled Saturday, didn't he? And he got called back, correct? Or they said he was down by contact?
I think that's right, yeah.
So those issues are not gone. I mean, I know the coaches are putting trust in him, but man, you can't afford fumbles in big spots in the game. And certainly Ivory Kelly Martin's had that issue. Hasn't come back to bite Iowa yet, but don't want to take that risk. Kyle makes a comment about Wisconsin finding their groove, but of course Mertz only threw 8 passes for 52 yards. Does Coach Phil Parker load the box and make Mertz beat them? I would think that would be the plan for everybody, but obviously it didn't work for Purdue. Don, what are your thoughts?
Well, I think that's a good way to start. And as we've discussed before, Wisconsin would prefer to run the ball 50 times. They ran it 51 times against Purdue. So again, let's force them to play left-handed. Let's not allow them to beat us the way they're most comfortable doing it. And that would be to pound the ball up and down the field. So I think that's a good plan. If we have to load the box to slow down the running game, let's do it. Let's take our chances outside. Maybe initially, put it this way: if we start the game early on by loading the box and attacking their running game, if we don't hold up well with a lot of single coverage, then we can always adjust. But at least we're giving it a chance to work. And in the process of giving it a chance to work, of course, you're making them play differently than what they'd like to play. Can we hold up well enough? That's a roll of the dice. We don't know. But obviously, at least I'd rather go that route than go the route of just letting them play like they want to play. And we know that they're pretty good at that because that's what they get by with doing a lot of the time.
Joseph Walters recommends some blitzing. Obviously, it's got to be well-timed. Phil is very selective with blitzing. Corn and Cattle, good to see you here this evening. You're catching us towards the tail end of our show. And how about this comment to finish things off this evening, Don? Give the ball to Pottebaum more. We've heard a lot of love towards the Iowa fullback, and he has been effective when running the football. I do believe that this is just my naive perspective. When I watch Pottebaum run, he doesn't really, at least that I've seen, he doesn't run with his shoulder pads down, and that concerns me because he's a 6'1" guy, and I'm afraid even though he's a big physical guy, at some point he's going to get stood up.
Well, I hope not. The beauty of giving the ball to your upback, to your fullback in an eye, is obviously you don't have to maintain the blocks as long because he clears the line of scrimmage quicker. And there is an element of surprise there, and I think that's one reason. I'd be curious. I bet if you go back and chart, typically when we give them the ball, it is a critical down. We usually need 1 or 2, maybe 3 even, but I think in almost every case we've gotten the yardage that we need. I think it's been pretty effective for us to give the ball to our fullback. And let's not forget we have a play off that called belly pitch too. You remember that? We faked a dive into the line and then pitch the ball outside of the contained rusher for a touchdown. So there are other companion plays that go with that complement giving the ball to the fullback. And as long as Pottebaum keeps getting the necessary yardage, I'd be inclined to keep giving him part of those carries because so far so good. He's been effective with it, and we're converting, and that's really all that matters.
Obviously, it's an 11 a.m. Central Time game on ESPN. So Iowa, Wisconsin, October 30th is coming Saturday, 11 a.m. Central Time. And then, of course, we will be here, Iowa Post game at the Voice of College Football, following what we hope to be an Iowa victory. But even if it's not, we'll be here talking about the Iowa-Wisconsin game immediately following the game. I will be here. We'll be taking your calls here at the Voice of College Football, Iowa Football at the Voice of College Football. And then, of course, let me throw this back up here again. Don will be back with us. And I'm going to make sure everybody's aware. This is Sunday. there was some confusion on our part about how many days there are in October last time, Don.
Pretty sure there's still 31, huh?
There's 31 days. So we'll be live with Don Patterson next Sunday, the 31st of October at 7 p.m. right here, Iowa football at the Voice of College Football. So again, I will be with you after the Iowa game, after the Iowa-Wisconsin game Saturday, and then I'll also be back with you and with Don Patterson Sunday evening at 7 p.m. We'll be taking your calls both Saturday and Sunday. And I want to throw this out again as well. I know I've been pushing this. I still want to get a feel, and we've gotten some response back, but would really like to get more response before we start a new project. If you would like an Iowa basketball live post-game show following Iowa Hawkeye games this fall and winter, please let us know. Let us know in the live chat. Comment on a video. You can send us an email. You can message us through Facebook. However you want to go about this, please give us some feedback. If you would be interested in listen to an Iowa Iowa basketball post-game show, please let us know. Because again, it does take a lot of coordination and some work. So again, we'd love to do this for all of our football and basketball enthusiasts, but we want to get a feeler out from everybody else. And Don, I'm just seeing if there's anything here that I'm missing. This Tuesday, every Tuesday, myself and the voice of college football, Mark Rogers, will be live right here on the Iowa channel, Tuesdays at 4:30 p.m. Central Time, talking Iowa football. So please join us. Again, we'll be taking your chats, your comments, your questions every single Tuesday, 4:30 p.m. live. We had been kind of doing our show different times of the week. It is every Tuesday at 4:30 p.m. Central Time here at Iowa Football at the Voice of College Football. And again, if you want to donate, please take a look at not the comments, I keep saying comments section, the description below this video. And please, as you do this, make a note that it's for the Iowa channel. This is what we want. Charles giving us some feedback about Iowa basketball postgame. So please, again, keep that in mind as we head into a big, what I think to be a huge game this coming Saturday. And, of course, I will be over at From the Hawkeye of the Storm on YouTube, Twitter, and Facebook, as well as our podcast on Spotify, as you see on the bottom ticker, talking about this Wisconsin game in depth throughout the week. So lots of college football content, lots of Iowa content we're pumping out, Don. But we are so thankful we have you. Thank you for joining us on a Sunday evening. And enjoy the week ahead, and hopefully we get a win this next Saturday.
Thank you, Corey. One parting thought I mentioned to you, and I wouldn't mind you sharing with the listeners. You made the drive to Omaha a lot shorter on Friday afternoon because we were listening to your program with Mark as we drove across the state of Iowa. And I don't know exactly what the logistics are as far as being able to put that on the radio, but somehow my wife was able to get that done. I'm not sure how she did it.
Let me just say this, and I'm glad you brought that up, Don. And I'll make a banner here for our next show. But this has kind of been in the works, and there have been a lot of things going on trying to make sure everything gets put in place for each show each week. But we were given the green light to convert our shows with you, Don, into a podcast. So you'll be able to access all of our live shows with Don Patterson. You'll be able to access those shows through From the Hawkeye of the Storm on, again, Spotify, Apple, Google, Amazon. So that will be done this week. But I don't, again, this takes a little bit of work and certainly time to get all of these post-game shows. We're gonna try to get all the post-game shows we've done this season with you, Don, onto our podcast platform. So From the Hawkeye of the Storm. And that makes it easier if you are in a car, if you're not in front of a computer, to where you can listen to our show. But again, we will be on Tuesday. Thank you for putting in that plug, Don. And we'll be back Tuesday, and we'll be back with you next weekend.
That sounds good, Corey. I look forward to it.